there.
Hello there.
Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars in the Galaxy. I'm Eli.
I'm Jacob.
And today we have a great episode of Star Wars in the Galaxy here. The final episode of Star Wars in the Galaxy of the year 2024. This is the final one published in the year 2024. Oh, what a year it's been for In a Galaxy. And oh, what a year we're going to have next year. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that at the end of this episode. We are yet again back with another episode of Andor, a Star Wars story, which I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about that name change. But yeah, so we are finishing the first arc of Andor season 1, and as you might have heard already, Jacob and I are not alone for this episode. We are inviting friend of the show, host of Triad of the Force, friend of the Star Wars community, Goose here. Hey Goose, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me. I didn't realize that this was going to be the final episode for the year for you guys, so I'm honored to be on it, especially with the uncertainty that 2025 is going to bring us.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we can for sure end things on a positive note.
We just figured that out like an hour ago too.
Insane. So yeah. So this is great. And to talk about Andor, I have like very fond memories of Andor, because I think that was one of the best moments and like during our podcasting career and like during social media and everything. So I feel like there was like a lot of positivity around that show and around that time. So like I'm happy to be talking about it here during the holidays and just have a good time with you guys.
I was gonna say it feels a little bit like what we're doing with what's happening with Skeleton Crew right now. Like I was pleasantly surprised. I was telling Jacob before we started recording, I'm pleasantly surprised how little people are upset by Skeleton Crew so far.
To be fair, I don't know if that's due to because I don't know about you guys, but I've basically removed myself from the platform formerly known as Twitter, and
Me too.
I've created the people on that side are calling the bubble. So I don't know if it has to,
there's always the possibility. There's always the possibility that
has created that, but I'm happy about it regardless.
There's always the possibility that the blue sky echo chamber or whatever they're calling it, because it's, I guess, a problem, I don't know, is making discourse better, maybe, I don't know. But either way, we're here.
It is for me anyway.
No.
Yeah.
I gave up on social media, outside of, my personal life for my friends. I gave up on using social media for Star Wars years ago, and I'm very, very happy to be living under a rock. And I'm very happy that other people are finally, joining me, saying, what is this discourse? We don't need discourse. We can talk about it face to face, or we can be quiet. Maybe
people are still talking.
Maybe I'm an extremist. Maybe I'm an extremist in that front, but join me. It's fun under the rock.
Well, as Goose and I know,
I don't care about what people think.
As Goose and I know,
that's my opinion.
As Goose and I know, I'm definitely going to cut this out. As Goose and I know, do you have a manifesto, Jacob? Because if you have a manifesto, that makes you an extremist.
It does.
That is the logical conclusion to draw from that.
It does. It makes you a Luigi. Let's put it that way.
That's correct. That is absolutely correct.
It's Mario Party up in this house. Actually, Luigi Party. Let's call it. Let's rebrand.
Luigi Party.
I will explain that to you afterwards. All right, but before we get into discussing Reckoning, the third episode of Andor and the conclusion of the first arc, we like to do a little bit of getting to know our first-time guests. So we have a question for you, Goose, kind of a two-part question, which is A, how did you get into Star Wars? And B, what inspired you to get into Star Wars social media space and start Triad of the Force and all that kind of stuff?
The first question, I always kind of feel bummed out to answer it because it's so boring, because I had the cliche Star Wars experience, right? For at least a lot of people like from my gen. I'm an elder millennial at this point, so like my entry point with Star Wars was the original trilogy. I remember like mid 90s when they did the re-release for the original trilogy for the special editions. Like my dad just took me to watch them in the movie theater, and it was it was one of those like love at first sights kind of things, and we immediately just went to Blockbuster, which obviously like we didn't have the special editions on VHS yet because they had just been released in theaters. But I was just like, well, I need to have these movies anyway, so we went to Blockbuster and we just got the original trilogy on VHS, which I still have at my childhood home, which I'm visiting now for the holidays. So it's safely stored in my old bedroom. And then immediately when the special editions came out on VHS, then we bought those again. So that was kind of the beginning of hoarding Star Wars merchandise and just giving George Lucas all of my money, because each time there came a new release of the original trilogy, I would just like rebuy it, twice on VHS, then on DVD, then Blu-ray. Now I'm taking a break because I'm, doing the streaming thing with Disney Plus. But anyway, so that was kind of my entry point, and it was kind of like a perfect time for me as well, because that's I was like a young person, and then going into 1999, I was what close to 10 or 11, something like that. I don't know how math works anymore. So like I was already primed as a Star Wars fan in the mid 90s, and then all of a sudden it's just like, wait, what? Now new Star Wars is coming out? So needless to say, I was enthused about episode 1 coming out, The Phantom Menace, and that movie was everything to me. I remember all the merchandising that happened around it. So I had the Qui-Gon Jinn action figure, I had the Darth Maul, I had like the comlink thing where you had like the little chips that you put in, it would say lines from the movie. I got the Qui-Gon Jinn lightsaber. I mean, it was balls to the wall Star Wars for me in the 90s and early 2000s. So I was a prequel kid, but as I became a prequel kid, I also was becoming a preteen, then teenager, and with that and the advent of the internet and chatting and blogs, and because there was still no social media at the time, but you start to expose yourself to like, oh, other people do not like this thing that I'm enjoying, and getting to be exposed to the toxicity against the prequels and everything. I was just like, oh wait, am I wrong about kind of liking these things? So I kind of started like, having that reckoning with like my relationship with Star Wars, and like, are the prequels? It was kind of like the film fanboys. I'm just like, wait, does this suck? You know? So I had that weird moment after that, and then going to college where I kind of disconnected from the saga for a while. Not that I stopped liking it, but I was just like, okay, I'm not into it as much anymore. But then, lo and behold, 2015, baby, when we got the announcement for episode 7 and George Lucas sold it to Disney, I was just like, okay, buckle up, Buttercup. I'm in. I'm back. Like, let's renew my driver's license for the fan club, because we're going hard on this saga. And ever since then, I've been back in the fandom, and I've been enjoying every minute of it. And to answer your second question about the podcast, it's also kind of cliche, I guess, because it's kind of like what 80% of podcasters came out of is during COVID. I was living alone at the time, and this was like the post Last Jedi. I don't know if Rise of Skywalker had come out yet. No, yes, Rise of Skywalker had already come out when COVID started, because that was 2019, if I'm not mistaken. But I was living by myself. I was isolated. I didn't have anybody really to talk to, because I'm just like at home. And then all my Star Wars friends are just like my high school friends that are back in Puerto Rico or other parts of the country. So I didn't really have like people in Chicago to talk about Star Wars yet. So like at one point I'm just like, wait, my buddies and I always talk about Star Wars anyway. So why don't we just like kill two birds with one stone? Why don't we just talk about Star Wars now online during COVID, and then just record it? And like, who knows? Like, and it's out there. Everyone does it. We might as well. Like, there aren't a lot of Puerto Rican podcasts out there, as far as I know. So who knows? Maybe this will turn into something. And I mean, I don't think it has yet, but at least we're still 4 years strong at this point. And we've been afforded a lot of opportunities to engage with Star Wars in ways that if you had told 11-year-old me going to see the Phantom Menace that I would have the opportunity to do, I would have never believed it. So I'm very blessed to have had that journey, and you can blame my dad for that, I guess.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I'm like, I was just listening, and I was just thinking, like, I haven't gotten too far yet. I'm like, I like, not to throw any shade or anything. I wasn't at the Acolyte premiere.
It wasn't too shabby. I'm gonna put it that way. I was very, very lucky and
Just,
privileged. But I didn't get the invite for Skeleton Crew. I'm just gonna put it. I got snubbed for Skeleton
yeah,
Crew.
yeah. I know their lists are really or at least I don't remember, because I don't think they do the big premieres for the Mandalorian stuff, do they? Seems
They
like
did for season 3. My theory about this is that because there's a new shadow president with a president that's coming into town and people that are destroying DEI committees and initiatives in corporate America. I feel like that just took my name off of the list because
no,
but that's
could
just a theory. That's
help.
just a theory. Just
Yeah.
Lucasfilm, just email me and disprove it. But
that
we're too woke. We're too woke. We like the Acolyte too much.
Yep. Unfortunately. All right. Speaking about a completely unwoke piece of Star Wars.
I'm pretty sure I have.
Can't even say that with a straight face.
With a straight face though. Like, I'm pretty sure in real life someone has told me with a straight face, like, I love Andor because it's like not progressive and it doesn't have these agendas. Like, what are you doing?
That's media literacy for you.
That
political awareness.
I'm so glad
0%.
I'm so glad I have the dagger of Festoon right here.
It is the anniversary, right?
We just passed 5 years. 5 years of Tross. 5 years of Tross. 5 years ago.
It's been a hell of a 5 years.
And it's gonna be 20 of Revenge of the Sith next year for Star Wars Celebration Japan.
Wow.
That is true. That is true.
Absurd. It's like time is ridiculous.
All right, but anyway, we're getting to Reckoning, the 3rd episode of Andor, the episode where everything hits the fan. Mm-hmm. We've been building up to this. We've been building up to the inclusion of the flashbacks, obviously, where Casa is in the crashed Republic / maybe Separatist ship, scavenging whatever he can take from the ship, where a younger Marva and her husband Clem Andor find him, and fearing that he's in danger, take him with them to escape possible Republic ships that are scouting the area, which sound dangerous for reasons we don't exactly know. But meanwhile, in the present day, the siege is on. Primor security is touching down on Ferrix to arrest Cassian. And meanwhile, Luthen Rael is trying to get to him first in their meeting space, which is like this garage area where Luthen starts to assess Cassian and see what kind of role he may be able to fill in whatever he has going on, whatever sort of rebellious activities he has going on the side. Soon enough, they're cornered and they make a run for it, at which time they spread out. Tim, I think this is the time where this is the point in the episode where Bix, first of all, Bix is hauled in for questioning in association with Cassian's arrest for any information, as well as Marva. I forgot about Marva, right? And they're Imperials who sack her home, and then once they realize where he is, which they trace through a transmission he's submitting through B2 Emo, they just take off, leaving her there. They confront Bix because they think she might have some information. Tim tries to stop the Imperials from intimidating her, but he gets shot and she gets very injured as well. Let's see, I'm trying to remember exactly how, this episode is such a rush and it goes down. Yeah, and meanwhile, Cassian and Luthen are able to corner and bind Cyril Karn, despite Luthen's urging of Cassian to kill him, and they then plant a decoy speeder, which the Empire shoots at again and again. They blow the hell up out of that, which creates a great distraction for Cassian and Luthen to escape Ferrix, to get to his ship, to escape Ferrix. and evade the Empire as they leave Ferrix. Yeah, a lot happens in this episode. We got the ends of the flashbacks, and we got the final piece of the puzzle that gets Cassian off of the Morlani system, just generally speaking. Although he may have been other places since he was taken to Ferrix, we don't know. But for one of the first times, at least, because I feel like there is like kind of some New Hope ish parallels with getting off of Ferrix and Luke getting off of Tatooine, in a certain sense. But yeah, I'm trying to pull up my notes. There we go. Here we go. We start with the flashbacks. So I think for just ease of talking about it, we should probably. I was thinking we'd deal with the flashbacks first because these are the most interspersed the flashbacks get. Like we're constantly flashing between the flashbacks and the present day to the point at which I think there's some really interesting editing at the end where like we'll literally see a shot of young Cassian and then it'll flip to older Cassian and it'll flip back and it does that like 5 times in a row or something like that. I remember just being very like, oh, there's another one. Oh, there's another one. It's a very fast pace at the end, mirroring Cassian getting off of Ferrix and Casa being taken off of Canary. Yeah. So anything? Let's start off. Anything either of you? Actually, I'll throw this to you, Goose. Anything you want to touch up on the flashbacks that either happened in this episode or even one of the earlier episodes?
Yeah, I just want to preface everything by saying that thank you for doing this for this episode in particular. So I remember when you guys reached out about doing this, and I knew we were going to talk about this. I was very excited because I remember having seen this episode for the first time, and I was very lucky, blessed, and privileged to have seen it at the premiere, and like a bunch of our friends were there. And I remember like when the episode was finished, and I just got up and looked at our other good friend Alden Diaz, and we were both just like, they're doing it, they're doing it. So yeah, so this this trilogy of episodes of this first arc, I think, were just spectacular in how it just sets up everything for this character that we thought we had known everything about during Rogue One, and it just reestablishes that we actually didn't know anything about him. But before going into the positives of the flashbacks, because I think the flashbacks do a lot of really good parallelisms and mirroring of what Cassian's journey is in the present versus what he was going through as a child. I first have to like say like a big criticism that I've always had about the inception of the flashbacks themselves, and it has to do with one of the reasons that I like Tony Gilroy. I think he means well by everything, and I want to also preface by saying that I love Andor, but I remember there was like one interview or a couple of interviews where he's just talking about those sequences in the flashbacks and why they're put in there. And one of the things that Tony Gilroy had says is like, oh, well, because we have Cassian and we have Diego talking in his Mexican accent. And it's one of those questions that I had when I was watching Rogue One. It's just like, why does this character have this accent? So we wanted to go back. We have to go back and explore it. And in my mind, I'm a Puerto Rican. I'm a Hispanic. I have an accent, and so like I'm just like accents are normal for people that English isn't their first language. So I was just like, why do we need to explain it? But I mean, there's hundreds of species, thousands of species in this galaxy that have we have like people talking in British accents and Irish accents
and British people talking in American accents. And,
exactly.
All
that stuff, and we have like all these things, and Tony Gilroy doesn't say we have to really explain why those Europeans are talking in their accents, but Jesus Christ, like we have a Mexican speaking in a Mexican accent, we must explain it. I was just like, that's a little, benign racism, for lack of a better word. So, I mean, that always kind of rubbed me the wrong way that we have to explain why the quote unquote exotic person is quote unquote exotic. It's very, for me, it's fetishizing, and so that's, I'm sure that's one of those things where, the white man meant well and he just put his foot in his mouth. But I need to, put that out there before going into the other stuff, because Andor is a political show, despite some people not understanding that it is. And I would be remiss if, as a person that really connected with that show, because of a lot of the subtext and text and representation, and especially having like a Hispanic person be the lead. As a Hispanic person myself, it means a lot to me. So I have to, acknowledge that this thing I like also has things that are questionable. But that's behind the scenes. I think that the flashbacks on this episode actually like do a lot of really good setup for Cassian, and also builds a lot of really interesting questions about, again, like the intentions that white people or colonial people do for these cultures, and are they correct, because one of the things that I've always questioned about that, and it might be part of the narrative, right? We might see season 2 explored a little bit more, was the whole kidnapping thing, right? We see it as benign, right? Because it's from Marva's POV and Clem's POV, and they're trying to just save this kid because they know the Republic forces are coming and they might wipe them all out. So, well, we have to take him and save him. But I'm just like, do you?
And when it's
what
addressed,
he wants,
as
and you're
like,
taking his agency away because, like, you tasered him and now he has no agency. So I don't know. That always seemed strange to me in a show that was pretty consistent, I think, in saying things the right way about the right things. Like those were moments where I'm just like, what is this? Is this benign colonialism all of a sudden? Like the white savior has to tell the locals how the best live their lives, and we have to take them away from their environments? Because I'm just like, well, this is what's happening kind of like in all the colonial places here in the world right now. But that being said, I think that in terms of like the cinematography and the writing of the show, it really works because a lot of like you were mentioning, Eli, like how everything was being intercut. It's like the experience that Casa was having in Kenari at the time is very parallel to Cassian's situation in Ferrix, where like they're both immersed in this government machine, right? One is like either the Republic or the Separatists, but it's a system of government that's oppressing where he is, and they're reckoning with how to deal with that, and they're both being removed by a white savior out of it. So like the whole, they both have to escape, and they both have these rage in both times of that life. So I think it was really interesting, clever, and appropriate, right, with like how the intercutting of those storylines were done. So that was a lot of long-winded ways of saying like I loved it. It was great, but there are things that we can kind of look back and say like, hey, was this right? But that's from an outside macro perspective.
Yeah. No,
I think even from within the show, as I was, and I didn't know about the interviews. That's a very interesting kind of perspective to add to this of like, and the language that they were speaking on, is it Kenari? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
The language that they're speaking on Kenari doesn't even sound anything like his accent. So it's like that, that you raise a very good point of like, what's really going on here. And then in terms of, Marva's sort of rescue / kidnapping of Cassian, I feel like that was a moment that kind of, that kind of raised my hackles, and I sort of was like, this doesn't feel like quite right, in within the show, within the experience of watching that, when I was rewatching that earlier today. And I kind of thought, like it was hard to tell, but the show kind of left it very ambiguous. So like, is this framed as, I couldn't quite decide, like, is it being framed as like a completely good act, or is this like a deeply, like, sort of a deeply, ambiguous act of like, she thinks she's doing the right thing, and like unequivocally she's gonna die if they stay here. On the other side of that, obviously, we have like, he clearly doesn't want to go with them, his family, his home, everything he's ever known, despite what's happening. He would have the right to say like, just leave me here. They can't communicate with him what's going to happen. Does he know? Does he have that knowledge? Not having that knowledge, there's a lot, like, I think the show like maybe missed an opportunity, despite how awesome I think this episode is, to kind of make that more of a point of sort of the,
maybe we'll have a flashback, in in
Yeah.
season 2 where they're gonna
Yeah.
I don't know, like have like a little
Yeah.
moment on the ship
Yeah.
to be like, hey, are
Yeah.
we cool?
And I mean,
gonna like
Yeah.
smooth that out.
Yeah. And I mean, clearly we kind of have we don't clearly we don't know a ton about their early relationship, but clearly Marva and Andor, like, they have a very, very, complicated and imperfect, sort of adoptive mother-son relationship, the two of them. So I think that, season 2, I agree that this is an excellent opportunity to kind of dig deeper into that. But in terms of the flashbacks overall, I think, like everything else about this episode, it felt like everything leading up to this, the first 2 episodes, there was slow burn setting up all the dominoes, and now we get to, knock all the dominoes down and enjoy, all the drama. And I think in the previous 2 episodes, I didn't really appreciate necessarily what the flashbacks did for those episodes, but for the moments that we get here, especially right at the end, I think, like you said, Goose, the parallelism that we get is really amazing, where we have, as deeply conflicting as it is and as I feel about it, we have Marva doing what for her and for her operation is in many ways a very selfless act. Regardless, it's a leap. It's a crazy leap, and that sort of mimics, the Cassian's taking this crazy leap, and like, Marva's sitting there at the end. So it's like beautiful, it's heart-wrenching, it's intense. She's sitting there in his room crying, like, because he's gone now and he like won't be able to come back, unless a ton of stuff changes, and all these emotions. And we're seeing that mirroring with, like, understanding, how Cassian, came into the family that she's sort of created with her and with her droid, whose name escapes me at the moment.
B2 emo, baby.
B2
We
emo.
don't sleep on B2 emo.
And I think it regardless of how we feel about that moment, and I kind of felt like at times it felt like a little bit of a nuisance in the first 2 episodes, the way that the flashbacks were inserted. I think the payoff is incredible in this episode. We see sort of the ambiguity, complexity, all the conflicting, intense emotions surrounding, like, the potential explosion of this family, and the way that it was created, like going back to the Genesis. So I think that I thought that it was overall pretty fantastic, the way that it came together in this episode, with all that complexity.
Right. Because Marva and Luthen kind of play the same role. Like, I mean, Marva in the flashbacks and Luthen in the present day are playing that same role, right? Like, where Luthen is allegedly looking for the star path and Marva's looking for the fuel cells. All of a sudden, they encounter that actually the real prize is the person in Casa and Cassian, like realizing that they want to have for different reasons or the same reasons. Doesn't particularly matter in terms of the parallelism, but it's just the storytelling, the cleverness of storytelling, kind of using mirror situations to convey the character's journey as he's going through it. Because in Kenari, like, he has his culture that's of kids that's rooted in the plays, and as he goes back into Ferrix, he's again in a community that's driven by its plays, and they're both very localized and detached from central governments. And now they're both like in these situations where a central government, either by a mining disaster or Primor, Corsept, or whatever the hell it's called, coming in to impose their authority, shakes what those communities are and shakes what Cassian's destiny ends up becoming, until he's on a ship with a white savior going off into hyperspace, into a new destiny.
Yeah, I have a couple things. First of all, the whole Marva and Clem taking him is further complicated for me by, like, the ambiguous fate of the other Kenari, where it's just like, okay, so he gets on the ship, and they are presumably somewhere else, maybe alive, maybe not. We don't know really. And he thinks his sister is still alive, but we don't actually know that, and we don't never come back to that. And I'm kind of skeptical myself if we ever will come back to specifically the angle about his sister. I will say that I think that Luthen very quickly figures out that he's not there for the Starpath unit. Like I think the moment he starts hearing from Bix about Cassian, I think he realizes. I think Luthen is one of those is one of those people who will like constantly like. He very much, and we'll get into this as more as we talk Luthen, has one of those like Palpatine-esque minds, of course, in a better way, where it's like he's seeing like 50 different endings to this scenario, and he's realizing no, this guy's more valuable than the unit. But yeah, it's there was a lot of course Luthen. Yeah, I remember just like watching the second episode and being like, oh, there's Luthen, and they didn't actually say anything really, except for a few words to that other guy on the bus, which, by the way, I totally forgot about last episode. Weird, one of the weirdest moments I completely forgot about the show, about Luthen and this random guy making small talk on the way down to Ferrix. Just random is, but we finally get we finally get the meeting that is seemingly been not hinted at, but like foreshadowed heavily for these last two episodes. You got to meet this guy. You got to meet this guy, Cassian. Bix said, you got to meet this guy. And then they finally meet. And I remember, I think for many of us, and probably Goose and I, maybe Jacob, I don't know, this was the first scene we've ever seen of Andor. Because this got released ahead of time.
Yeah.
This scene, at least the first part of the scene in the garage.
And the line, it was in the trailers from like,
yeah,
oh, they're so fat and happy. I mean, yeah.
Don't you want to fight these bastards for it? Yeah, there. Luthen's rousing speech was a good one to start to introduce the show. Whether it's in Luthen's top 5 speeches of this season, that's debatable. I know we're all thinking of that one. But,
that one, yeah.
in one way out, but yeah. So I really do like how they're building this dramatic tension. They're like there's this slow climb that they do in it, and I think it's done very well in this arc, obviously in Aldhani and in the Narkina 5 arc. Like this slow simmer to everybody's getting a little bit closer. Luthen's getting a little bit closer to Cassian. The imps are getting a little bit closer to Cassian. They're starting to piece things together. And I actually forgot, at least for me, I think probably I'm comparing this to the Eye, especially. And maybe one way out a little bit. I forgot that the battle, the explosion that happens, really isn't that big at the end of this episode. Like, there is some shooting, there is some blasting, but it's not that much actually. They're don't get me wrong. There are explosions, people die, people are injured, blah blah blah. But really, the biggest thing that happens is Cassian and Luthen pulling an Obi-Wan Kenobi, going, hey, look over there, blowing up the thing, and we'll escape the other way, which is quite literally for me an Obi-Wan move, because obviously of the New Hope, and then of course in Part 5 of Kenobi. That move, I think the Force Center people were describing as like I did. I think I got from them like the hey, look over here while we sneak away. But yeah, I gotta say, yeah, this episode, I feel like there's so much happening all at once, like that it's kind of like I'm fine breaking form with the episode. Like I don't care where we go, we can go things out of sequence. It's like there's a lot happening in this episode. I will say that I think the talking of that I would want to go to if either of you have any ideas about where to go next, but my gut reaction is to go to how the Empire totally takes control of Ferrix once they are on there and they have their mission to execute.
I mean, for me, it was really interesting because one of the ways that I really have talked about the show, and especially these first 3 episodes, it's a pressure cooker, right? It's a lot of people had been saying that, oh, the show's just boring, there's nothing's happening, and I'm just like, it's not. It's like we're watching completely different shows, because for me, this is just, it's deliberate. It's setting up pieces for, to use the parlance of our times, for an end game, right? And everything was very intentionally set to keep ratcheting the temperature and raising the temperature and ratcheting the pressure, so that we have that big explosive moment. And while we do get like the explosion, like you said. Really, the whole momentum of the show is just that heartbeat that starts the minute that the cops show up, right? Where we have a community that is used to taking care of each other because the community saves the community. That's
Yeah.
and they
Yeah, with
mess with
yeah.
they mess with Marva, right? They mess with one of the elders, and the community is just like, that's not right. It's one of their elders. You don't mess with them. You respect your elders, and that's when the community starts reacting to the injustice of law without the law without justice, and one of the key things about that whole sequence is not necessarily how cops impose their fist, right? Because that's what cops do. They're brutes,
Yeah.
right? They only know how to stomp, and they only know how to beat. So that's how they're always going to execute force. But the interesting thing about it is just how the community reacts to it, and it's very musical, and it's them banging
Yeah.
against metal,
Yeah.
right?
The
And it's one of
banging
those
on the
things
bells.
that
Yeah.
and it's one of those things that for me it resonated a lot because fairly recently fairly recently at the time that Andor came out, there have been like a lot of protests here back home in Puerto Rico, and one of the ways that like we protest, and not just us but a lot of Hispanic communities, is through what's called cacerolazo, which literally means banging on pots and pans, and it's just like all night it's just people banging on pots and pans. So it's something that's very real and very tied to like how like communities that I'm part of and others protest injustice and protest the government, and to kind of see that in the show was really, really, really special, but also because of how musical it is and how it helps set up the tension of the show, because you always have that clanging in the background, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
Marva,
Yeah, she
all
even
of a sudden
says,
Luthen, yeah,
yeah.
Luthen
Time of
and
reckoning.
Cassian are having their discussion, and all the while, like you kind of you keep hearing it all the while until Marva says, "Oh, this is what a reckoning sounds like," but that's not when you have to be worried. You have to be worried when it
When it
stops.
stops,
And
because
so,
then you have no idea what they're doing.
right, and I think that was like really good because it's still is going on, right? You still keep hearing the clanging, but all of a sudden now you're aware of it, right? Because now
Yeah.
the writer put it in, and it's the Chekhov's gun type of thing. Like now, he said that you have to be aware of the sound because when it stops, something's gonna happen. So before it's just background noise that you're subconsciously getting anxious about because it's a heartbeat that keeps drumming up, and
That
all of
the
a sudden it
imps
stops.
and that the imps, of course, foolishly overlook.
Mhm,
The mosque says they're just trying to intimidate us, which
Yeah.
they're not wrong. It's just like they're incredibly overlooking a key function, of course, which is the communication aspect of it, which is the hey, these guys are coming. Lock down, do whatever you need to do to keep yourself safe from these guys.
Yeah.
Thrawn would have figured it out because
Thrawn would have
cares
figured
about
it
that
out.
shit.
Thrawn knows art.
I mean,
Thrawn does this.
I mean, if you want to
Um,
talk about, like Luthen says, like the arrogance of the Empire, and if you want to talk about the arrogance, sort of, I think that's such a to me, it's just one line, but that kind of stood out to me as a moment, when he says, "Oh, they're just trying to intimidate us." Like, it's not about you guys. It could be any other, like, you know what I mean? Like I think that's part of what makes this show in particular really cool is the way that it shows like the landed specificity of place and like the specificity of individual communities, how they're responding to the fist of the Empire trying to come in and swipe all the pieces of the board, smash everything, whatever. I think him saying that, their entire experience, Cyril Karn's entire experience of like, they're coming in, they're the big, they're gonna come in, just reestablish law and order. We got our fancy uniforms and everything, and then they just get completely humiliated. And then, like from the very beginning, like as soon as they like touch down, it's completely clear that they're like they're like completely overwhelmed. They're scared. They're stressed. They have no idea what's happening. Like that, the explosion comes behind them, and then he's immediately like oh my gosh, like we're surrounded. Like they must be all around us. Like it is such a
almost
good,
like real cops.
it is such a good description of like how imperial power sort of works on the ground at like at like an individual level that I literally, I'm in college and I've studied history, and one thing that I was working a lot and researching a lot this semester was actually this, very idea. I was actually reading about an incident just like this, actually in Indonesia 400 years ago. The exact same thing happens where this is documented. This is true. A lantern falls, and the head of the Dutch East India Trading Company, who was like stationed there, was so freaked out by that all the guards they ran out and they started shooting into the forest because they were so scared that this was like a signal for like a massive attack, and no one was there. So I think that's what I love about this show, is sort of the realism in portraying on an individual level. Like you said, the hand, the foot, the fist coming in, crushing, and then the people fighting back, with banging on all the pots and pans, like you said, with everything that they're doing. I think that's what makes this show to me so brilliant. And in this episode is where we really get to see it, and we see we don't just see Cassian and what that experience is like. We see Cyril Karn too. That's so cool to me that we see him, and we even feel a little bad for him when he's he really thinks that he's doing the right thing. He thinks.
I was gonna say I'm not with you on that one. There was that incredible moment for me of Glee where it's the face that Cyril makes right after he sees them riding away of I got played really badly, and that was after seeing this guy already, ironically being right about. Ironically, being the only one in the Empire to take action against Cassian, when the others are very complacent and corrupt within the system. But now to be just absolutely played, to see he's absolutely out of his element, to see he's just so he is so into the ideology, and he is so into let's burn the place down, let's find this guy, let's enact the most brutal punishment on him, and to see them get so effectively played by two people, he gives up. That's another thing. Actually, we'll see this again in Narkina 5, of course, which is it's always about there's always that question of how many people are there.
Never more than 12.
Never. That's yeah. I was just thinking about that. Never more than 12. And this is, I think there were 12. Regular troops and 2 officers.
He said 12 or 14, 2 officers, something like that.
Yeah. So anyway, they were outnumbered 7-1, and yet didn't matter. They outsmarted them, and it brings us nicely to. I just wrote down this entire exchange because it's one of my favorites of the show. Which is with Lucy and Cassian in the garage a little bit earlier. How you just walk in like you belong. Takes more than that, doesn't it? What, to steal from the Empire? What do you need? A uniform, some dirty hands, and Imperial toolkit? They're so proud of themselves, they don't even care. They're so fat and satisfied, they can't imagine it. Can't imagine what? That someone like me would ever get inside their house, walk their floors, spit their food, take their gear. Of course, obviously all of the trailers, but I remember even seeing in the episode just had that singular impact on me, and I think on Luthen as well, when he realizes, I think even before Cassian realizes, oh, this guy's for real. This guy has not only the smarts, but the raw desire to take these guys down as much as I do. That I think this is the moment where Luthen really sees the rebel in Cassian Andor for the first time, which is
for me, the line is just amazing. Then when I saw it when the show came out, but now and I don't know how politically deep we want to get here on this podcast, but in a post Luigi world, that line just took on so much more meaning because it's about class consciousness, right, and about recognizing how the systems and the powers that be are satisfied, content, and comfortable in the power that they wield because they think that it's unlimited and they think that the boots on everyone's necks are going to keep everyone in line, and they don't realize that it can just shift in with the easiest move class of working people that is oppressed by a system of government has a capacity, and once it reaches it, that's when revolution happens. And we've seen it in history. We've seen it in France. We've seen it like in this here United States. And I think that Andor is a magnificent exploration in a sci-fi fantasy setting of things that we're very, aware of, even though I think we forget because, sometimes history is just in books and we forget that they happen. And I think that's the power of stories like these, stories like Star Wars, and obviously other films and TV shows out there that tell stories like these, that the power always lands in the people that are, being oppressed. Rich people hoarding money and power are never the heroes in the stories. So I'm always interested in seeing that some people that like Andor kind of connect with it backwards, because I'm just like, we are not watching the same show.
Yeah, there's what I'm gonna say. There's that, like, I had this like kind of moment with this time around where it was like we come back to this fear again. This fear is obviously an incredibly pervasive theme in Star Wars, but this specific fear of that the ruling class, in this case of the Empire, has of a revolution, of an overthrow of some kind, that they're willing to do anything, even let themselves be stolen from, in order to avoid it. Like they're fine with people. They're not fine, but like they would let people steal right under their noses instead of confronting their fear, their very legitimate fear of what might happen to the people they are oppressing. If they wise up and realize what's happening to them. There's a line after that I have written down. Soon enough, they'll have something else to listen to, and of course that will tie in. This is also, I think, this episode succeeds is also just a great link, obviously, from what we've seen in the last two episodes to Aldhani, and I think it's very appropriate that we have. That we have Aldhani directly after this, like taking place like just after this, because Cassian is taken from his new homeworld, where a minor incident boiled over and became a hellscape, and two, immediately what I'd call like the opening battle of the Galactic Civil War. The American War for Independence is called the shot heard round the world, and I think Aldhani is absolutely that for the Galactic Civil War. It is the, hey, we're here, we can steal a shit ton of money from you guys and get away pretty easy.
Yeah, I would compare. I would say that I would compare it to like in Death Star terms, where Aldhani is the reactor test on Jeddah, and then the Gorman massacre is the attack on, obviously, the destruction of Alderaan. Like those are the equivalents, like in scale, in terms of like pushing rebellion to the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which we might get the Gorman massacre in season 2.
I'm convinced we're getting it in season 2. Yeah, I'm convinced we're getting it in season 2. And then we have this striking line, which for me is like the thesis question of the show, or at least this first season. Really, this is the thesis question of the season, which is what I still love this line. Don't you want to fight these bastards for real?
Andor.
Yeah, Cassian Andor.
Cassian Andor. I fucking love Luthen so much, dog.
Stellan Skarsgård is fantastic, and what I love about that question is, I feel like throughout this season, Cassian will go through everything he does in this season to get to the place where answering that question no would not only feel stupid, but it would also feel irresponsible. Like, he starts out incredibly, like, obviously no love for the Empire, but not really caring, not really taking a side in it. And it's the I think that there was a very similar idea that George had when doing it with Luke in A New Hope. I think there's some deleted dialogue where it's like, yeah, no, the war is not here on Tatooine yet, but it'll come, and when it comes, everything you know and love is at risk. And Cassian gets a firsthand experience of how that is true, about how the Empire's oppression will come for any and everything he loves.
In many ways, right? It's a parallel to it. Like it always reminds me of two stories in Star Wars. It's just it's I was gonna say Rey, Jesus Christ, Jyn Erso's story in Rogue One, where she says like, "Oh, it's not a problem if you don't look up." Right?
Don't look up. Yeah.
And then obviously John Boyega's character Finn in the sequel trilogy, where he has that journey of in The Force Awakens, he's fighting against the Empire, but it's not because he's the First Order, but it's not because he's anti-First Order. It's because he's doing it for Rey. And then in The Last Jedi, he has that growth moment where it's just like, oh, this is a thing I have to do now for these reasons, where I have to stand up against the First Order on my terms against it, as opposed to, what I was doing before. And I think that that's a really interesting thing about Cassian's journey in Andor, with like he's not against. He is against the Empire, but he's not fighting actively against them for the greater good. He's just fighting against them for his immediate gain. And he's still in that moment right now, right? He's gonna accept. No spoilers, right? But he's gonna like go into the Aldhani arc and do those things, but he's not doing it to fight the Empire. He's doing it to leave Ferrix, leave consequences, and escape whatever imperial consequences are cast upon him. And he has to like go through this journey until the end of the show, and he's like, I'm going to fight the Empire. I want to take these bastards down.
Yeah. And of course we'll see going way ahead on Niamos, where he tries to escape the Empire and only to realize there is no escape in the most drastic way possible. But yeah. And then of course also in this shuffle we have Luthen telling Cassian, I'd like you to come with me. And I know this would be too on the nose. I understand that I need, like, that this is a need that I have that is specifically like a Star Wars fan instinctual, like, oh, I want this. But like in that moment, I was almost heard. I'm like, do you hear that in the background? Dun 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 dun. I'm like, I need the Force theme right there, because this is you must learn the ways of the Force. You're gonna come with me all around. This is that moment where Cassian has to, and the choice he makes is very rushed, because of course they're being shot at a whole lot. But I think this is, I remember I mentioned this in a previous episode, something that Alex Damon was realizing about Andor through his reviews. I remember like him going through this thought process in me, and I thought this was very interesting, of like the whole idea of this season being Cassian becoming, like, Cassian starts this season as a passive actor. Things are done to him.
Yes.
Through this arc and the season, he becomes the active actor. He happens to things now. He takes the initiative, and this is, I feel like, very much the start of him like deciding, no, things aren't just going to happen to me. I'm going to make things happen.
Absolutely,
I agree. Yeah. I was going to mention that, but you took the words out of my mouth, so I agree.
And we've already talked about when it's quiet. That's when you really want to start to fret, which is just there are so many chilling lines this episode, and chilling in the best way. And I'm trying to think, is there anything else you'll want to get to before we talk about, like, there's this like ending montage, which I think, I don't know if either of you felt this way. Any montage in Star Wars, I automatically think back to the first montage I remember getting in Star Wars, which is Twilight of the Apprentice, where Ahsoka goes into the temple. We don't know what's happening, but we see Vader getting off the planet. We see Maul getting off the planet. We see the clear scene of the Ghost Crew, like, welcoming Ezra and Kanan on board and being like, hey, where's Ahsoka? Oh, she's gone. That moment, that like sequence of clips, and of course Ahsoka stepping down the steps of the temple, all with Ahsoka's theme playing over it. But I forgot we got this at the end of this episode, where
Mhm.
we're seeing all the fates of these characters after Cassian and Luthen got away. Cyril and Mosk dealing with it the way they're dealing with it. Bix still clearly recovering. Marva and B2 Emo still recovering from, the imps just raiding their house, which it's very funny. Or not funny, I shouldn't say funny, but like it's very, I did think it was very, there was a weird sense of something where it was like the detail I love, which is like as soon as they got a lead on Cassian, most of them just left Marva. They were just like, all right, gotta go, see you, bye.
Well, they leave the two guards that are scared out of their wits, though.
Yeah, of course.
They're
because
shooting bricks by that point. Like,
yeah, no, absolutely.
Marva got to them.
And that's a good way to put it, because they don't know that they can.
The
people of Ferris can use bricks.
Yeah, no,
very aggressive ways.
Yeah, they're
I didn't even attempt for that pun, but yeah.
Perfect. But it just happened. It just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything any of you all want to get to before we have some questions we ask our first time guests? First, we'll do obviously, I should say before this, we'll do a quick wrap up of the episode, but any other details you'll want to get to for this episode?
I mean, I think one of the things that I wasn't expecting about this show was to treat it, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, to do arcs in that very similar way that Clone Wars does them. But for me, it's kind of very satisfying, because one of the issues that I've had with streaming in general, but I mean, this is a Star Wars podcast, and I have a Star Wars podcast. I'm going to talk specifically about Star Wars, but with shows like Luca or Obi-Wan Kenobi, which, don't get me wrong, like I've enjoyed most, if not all, of the series that have come out, but they always feel a little limited by the constraints of the episode count and how the shows are structured, because they always feel more like movies that are chopped up instead of like cohesive series and narratives. And I think that, well, that's not right to say, because there are cohesive narratives, but you know what I mean. Like, it's not, it doesn't feel like traditional standalone episodes, right? And I think that Andor strikes the right balance in having episodic moments, overarching arcs, and then like overarching arcs for the series, overarching arcs within arcs, and it's put together in a way that is very satisfying, at least to me as a viewer. And I think one of the benefits of that is having 12 episodes. I think 12 episodes worked extremely well for this show, and I just remember feeling content every time an arc wrapped up, because you're like, that was good. We have closure about this, and now I'm ready for the next moment. So I think that Reckoning was kind of a perfect way to end this first arc, because one set up the expectations of what this show is, and then opened the door to what the rest of the story was going to become.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I totally understand, like, this season I feel is structured incredibly well. Like, we have I might have like it I think there is a lot of there is like a small pacing thing I have way later in the show, where I feel like, I think it's the second to last episode, like they start on Narkina 5 and they still kind of have to get off, and that's when we do the Dewey and Freedy stuff. I'm like, couldn't have this just been last episode? But other than that, really, I think this show does a great job with pacing, and like of setting up this format, which we use 3 times in this season, of build tension, build more tension, and I love how it escalates in this one. But I'm going to give a spoiler here, which is this is my least favorite of the arcs. Of maybe, I'm trying to think.
That's a good thing, though, because that means that it just keeps increasing.
No. Yeah, I like this a lot. But like, yeah, I'm trying to think. Is it this or is it Aldhani? I know that Narkina 5 is my favorite, but I'm trying to like. Yeah, I think it probably might. And I also just think there's also a method. There's a measure of, like, again, spoilers for ahead, but like by the time we get to One Way Out, we have like 3 times as many storylines building by then, which I think that was something that the show did incredibly well as it escalates, is that we keep adding these storylines. Obviously, we haven't met Mon Mothma. We haven't seen what she's going through at the time. We haven't, we'll stick with Cassian as he goes on his adventure across the galaxy, but also we'll check up on Ferrex. So there's another path we're going down. We'll check in with what Luthen's doing because they won't stay together. And the building of okay, and of course with Cyril and then Dedra, of watching the Imperial side of it, there are all of these layering storylines going up, and what I think is done so well in later episodes is okay, and now we're going to switch back to this one, and now we're going to switch back to this one, and now we're going to switch, jumping around. But I think even this, with, really only we have the three perspectives, Marva, Cassian, and Cyril, because Cassian and Luthen meet up decently soon within the episode. I think it does a great job of balancing all three perspectives on this reckoning that's coming about. But yeah, I mean, yeah. If anything, have anybody has anything else about just generally this episode they want to get to, just beyond that? This was a very climactic finale to this arc that wrapped things up, I think, pretty nicely with a bow for this arc specifically, and how it ended the storytelling.
I think one thing I would like to add that I think I realized this time around watching this episode is, I love Andor. It's no secret, Eli. Maybe it irks you how much I love Andor because I know we have different feelings. But another thing I love about this show, that this episode, especially with the security guards and their kind of action and their place in this episode. One thing I love that that Andor exemplifies is how, so often in Star Wars, we have the ideology of the Empire. We have sort of the idea of this is the Empire. This is what Palpatine. People like Palpatine and Tarkin. They have their ideas about order and keeping the galaxy in line and dominance and all these things. But then this is, I think, from everything that I've seen and read in Star Wars, this is the greatest sort of look at how that gets translated, the tire hitting the road, so to speak. We get to see with these security guards, aside from maybe Cyril Karn and the other commander, whose name also escapes me at the moment, who he's a true believer, he's a fanatic, he's completely brainwashed. These guys don't really seem to, they're worried about getting out of there alive. They're terrified. They're in this unfamiliar situation. And I think when Tim gets shot and when Tim gets killed, that's sort of the moment when you understand, it's the classic thing. The cop was fearing for his life. The soldier, you know what I mean? It's that exact, and that moment for watching that this time was sort of a light bulb moment of that's why I love this show so much, of we see on an individual level how the high and mighty ideas sort of they get passed down, they get diluted, they trickle down. Cyril, he has his spiel about the law and empire, and he gives his speech to his guys, and his guys are this guy's
whatever, man. Yeah.
He's great. They're this guy's crazy and he's also a loser. We're getting
which
paid
they aren't wrong about.
And then they end up carry it out anyway because of the situation that they're put in, and they kill an innocent man because of the fear and the indoctrination, and sort of like you said earlier about cops and soldiers, if you put a hammer in someone's hand, if you tell someone that they're supposed to rule through, they're supposed to dominate their surroundings, use only violence, that's the tools that they're given to deal with every situation. That's how you get Tim running to go check on his girlfriend who's bleeding from her head, and they're oh my gosh, we need to shoot this guy, he's a threat. So I feel that moment really crystallizes one thing that I really appreciate about this show, which is showing the dynamics of fascism, authoritarianism, every political ism, social political ill that this show kind of addresses, how that plays out on an individual level, even when the individual people who are enforcing it don't necessarily believe in it. I think that's something that we can all learn from right now, unfortunately. But
And with that, we get to our
show.
sponsor this episode, which is a link I just totally found on Blue Sky. Objects to hit fascists with in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle ranked. This is a real article.
Wow.
I just saw it. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, this is fantastic. It's an actual rank list. This rank list is 44 items wrong.
I need to. I have a PlayStation 5, so I still need to wait to be able to play the game. So no spoilers. No spoilers. I'm trying to avoid.
I think I'm gonna be getting it in like the next week or so. But yeah, no, I'm.
I wasn't planning on getting it because I'm not too big of a fan of first person. But after reading all the reviews, I'm just like, I guess I have to now.
I didn't even know this game was a thing. Apparently,
it takes place
maybe we'll play some of it at some point. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. I also have to finish. That's on my list. I've still actually not played that much of Outlaws. I played a little bit of Outlaws and also Guardians of the Galaxy. Still, I still need to get through that. Yeah. But anyway, I think if that's going to be it, I think this time is great to get into our questions that we ask our first time guests.
I'm nervous. Pop quiz.
Yeah, no, this is not, don't worry.
Lighthearted questions. We won't. Yeah. There's one question.
I've been on trivia with you, Eli, before.
Yeah.
So
These are not. This is not that. This is not. Well, one of them might be.
There's one question we will judge you for.
Except for not really.
Yeah, only Eli will judge
it's complicated.
You for it, except not really. We'll explain.
Yeah, we will explain. That's at the very end. The first question. I feel like this is such a just very much. Yeah. Who is your favorite Star Wars character?
I just hate giving cliche answers, but it's true, I guess. I mean, because when I was growing up, and I was watching the original Star Wars trilogy, I remember lots of people thinking, Han Solo's such a badass and all these things. And for me, I wear glasses. I'm not, I'm not a jock or anything. So when I saw Han Solo, I remember just thinking he's just like one of those jocks from school who's just, he's just cool and he doesn't do anything right and he gets to fail upwards. So I never really resonated. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Han Solo, but I didn't connect with him as a character, as a person myself, right? With how I identified with the character. So I kind of identify just with Luke, because I was like, he's just a normal guy, just like me. He just wants to get his work done and try to do something bigger with his life, and kind of that journey has always been really interesting to me, which is why I'm really looking forward to see if when the Battle of Jakku comics wrap up, if they're going to reboot the Star Wars comics and finally give us a post Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker stories, because I'm really invested in seeing a lot of that. But yeah, Luke, I think Luke's story is very compelling, especially because we were so lucky. I mean, I consider myself lucky to have had a new chapter of Luke's story in The Last Jedi and see how characters can grow. And it was kind of timely for me too, because I'm 36 now. I mean, when The Last Jedi came out, I was a little younger, but kind of to see that where you are in life you don't have to be disenfranchised by that and see that, oh, I'm behind or I'm not achieving what I need to achieve, because because heroes feel that too. So in many ways, seeing Luke's portrayal in The Last Jedi was very special, because it's kind of it gives you something to aspire to, because it's not just you don't stop being a hero the one time you did the heroic thing. You always have to kind of strive to be better and to push the envelope and to increase your capacity for good each time. So I mean, that's my answer. I'm gonna stick to it. I know a lot of people say that Luke is whiny, but so is Anakin. I mean, I love Rey, I love Ahsoka. I mean, I love Leia, but Luke Skywalker, man, I have that the what's it, Regal robot that did the Luke Skywalker replica lightsaber from The Mandalorian. I mean, I spent so much money on that crap because that's my favorite lightsaber from my favorite character. So Luke all the way, baby. I wanna see that Jedi Academy.
Absolutely. Me too. Jacob, I think you got the next question.
Yeah. What is your personal ranking, if you have one, of the Star Wars movies? If not top 3, top 5, what are your favorites? Tell us about it.
Oh, I do have a ranking. So let's see if I remember it. So right now, I would put them at a verse. Should I start top to bottom or bottom to top?
Whatever you want.
Whatever you like.
Okay, let's go bottom to top. And this is gonna like saying the alphabet backwards, I guess.
It's the proper
Bottom,
way,
and
though.
I'm sorry about this one, Eli. I apologize because I know you love this movie.
I know it's coming. I know it's coming.
But my least favorite Star Wars film, unfortunately, is The Rise of Skywalker. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just I just did not enjoy it. I did not connect with it. It has great moments. That has one of my favorite lines in the whole saga. Confronting fear is the destiny of a Jedi. You know, I love that. But the movie as a whole, just not for me. But I don't relitigate it. I don't make a career out of talking about things I don't like. I just move on. After that, I would say Attack of the Clones. Even though like growing up, I really liked it a lot, but now it's just like not my favorite. After that, Rogue One. Oh my god, how many movies are there at this point? 1, 2, 3. Rogue One, probably. No, not Rogue One. I said Solo. Sorry, Solo. Then Return of the Jedi. Then Rogue One. Then A New Hope. And I think Empire and Last Jedi are kind of virtually tied at this point because I think Empire technically edges out Last Jedi because of nostalgia. But I think the test of time will prove if Last Jedi is indeed better than Empire Strikes Back. Maybe, am I missing any movie or did I hit everything?
I think you hit everything. Phantom Menace in there?
Phantom Menace is in there, and I think Phantom Menace is probably tied with A New Hope. It's right there, like in middle to top. A lot of people talk that Phantom Menace is the weakest of the prequel trilogy, and I wholeheartedly disagree. I think Phantom Menace is the strongest of the prequel trilogy.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I would say it's from best to worst. Phantom Menace, Revenge of the Sith, Attack of the Clones.
Exact same for me. Yeah,
exact same. And when I say worst, I don't mean they're bad. I just mean that's how ranking works. So yeah. So I probably missed The Force Awakens. It's also probably in there, tied with A New Hope up there. But that's the best I can do without my list in front of me to reference.
No, that was good. What non-movie Star Wars media do you think people are missing out on?
See, that's bad because I have such a terrible. See, this is why I have Letterboxd, because if I didn't have Letterboxd, I would just forget immediately everything I watch because I'm really bad. But
we'll put the links in the description. Follow Goose and myself on Letterboxd, the best social media app.
It is 100%. Pretty good. Let me open it real quick just to get something, because I don't want to give you some cliche trite answer like like Interstellar, because everyone loves Chris Nolan. But
I was specifically talking about Star Wars media.
Yeah. Star Wars media. I
non-movie Star Wars media.
Non-movie Star Wars media. Okay, thank you. That definitely narrows it down. But I am a big fan of the Thrawn trilogy, the Ascendancy trilogy of Thrawn books.
Right.
I mean, I'm a Thrawn fan, not a hardcore Thrawn fan, but I'm a Thrawn fan because those were the first Star Wars books I ever read, like in the early 2000s. The Thrawn trilogy was my intro into the expanded universe. So I've always been drawn to that character. So like I have almost every edition of the new Thrawn trilogy books because I just love those bad boys. But especially the first one, Chaos Rising, I think that people are sleeping on it. I think that Thrawn Ascendancy, Chaos Rising is one of my favorite Star Wars books that have come out in the Disney era, for lack of a better term. And I think people don't give that one a shot because it's different, which I think is what's exciting about it. So that one and the first Alphabet Squadron book. Those are two ones that I think people not ignore, but don't talk about as much.
All right. Everybody has one, I feel like. Who is your Star Wars glove shitto favorite background character, whatever you want to call it?
See, I've always been fascinated by the glove shido phenomenon on social media because it's just something that I never really like latched onto too much. I don't know. Like maybe it's because like I don't look at the backgrounds that much, and I'm very architecturally minded. So when I'm looking at backgrounds, I'm just looking at sets and production design and ships and architecture. I'm not looking at the character. So like I've never had like a glub shido, man. I need to really step up my game and find a good answer for that. Maybe nowadays is like BB9E, but I don't know if he's a glub shido these days because you can play him in Star Wars Battlefront.
I
But
think he should count as a glove
I
shido.
feel like that could count.
The marketing doesn't count him as a glove shido, but like I think in story, we see him in for 5 seconds in The Last Jedi. I think he's a glove shido.
Maybe Aftab Akbar, you know,
Aftab Akbar,
maybe I don't know. I need to
prodigal son.
I need to do some soul searching before 2024 is over, so I can have like a honest to God answer because I feel like I'm failing.
I feel like I like Aftab, the prodigal son, the guy who his father was apparently too busy sitting on juries and stuff in Ahsoka, I guess, to raise as a child.
I just want him to get his command of his own Mon Calamari cruiser. I want to see some, I mean, okay, I don't want to like derail this because I know like we're trying to wrap up. But like one of the things that like really disappointed me as a sequel lover, because I love the sequel trilogy, but one of the things that really disappointed me was the lack of like new capital ships and new ship designs and stuff like that. Last Jedi was starting to do it because we got the Supremacy and a bunch of like really cool new First Order ships that were different from the Imperial rehashes that we got, for better or worse. So I wanted to see a lot of like new Mon Calamari cruisers and new Republic capital ships. So that's something that I feel like hopefully Ahsoka started giving us some of that. So I just want to see Aftab, have like a sweet ass Mon Calamari capital ship in the future. So hopefully in the Rey movie we'll
that
see
would be
that.
amazing.
That'd be incredible. Yeah. JB, next up.
What is your favorite Star Wars species? Could be an alien, extension, animal, doesn't matter. What's your favorite?
I mean, Rhodians are fun, but they got a bad rap for shooting at Han. Twi'leks, I don't know how what's the correct way to say it. I feel like saying Twi'leks is also kind of dangerous because you're like, oh, just because they're chained up and scantily clad. So it's tough, but I think my answer for today will be Wookiees, just because I got the Galaxy's Edge Gungi lightsaber, and that's one of my favorite lightsabers of all time. I know I said it Luke's, but Luke's is definitely top 1. Gungi's is in the top 10 for sure, top 5 probably. So because I just got that lightsaber a couple of weeks ago, I'm gonna go with Wookiee.
Yeah, wooden lightsaber hilt is phenomenal.
The ship love and the Wookiees, Jacob, you're hearing all this?
You're after my own heart here. I'm a huge Wookiee fan myself. Yeah. I'm also a ship nerd, as Eli can tell you. Yeah. So
what?
I mean, I wanted those. I mean, that's one of those things that I will say. I know you're a big fan of Star Wars Resistance. I thought it was fine. Don't get me wrong. But one thing that I did love about Star Wars Resistance that I feel like we should have gotten in live action were the T-85 New Republic X-wings. I'm just those are cool. Like, why didn't we just get? I mean, no disrespect to the T-70. The T-70 is too close to the T-65. I wanted that T-85, but whatever. I digress.
How about those? How about those like create like chop shop hot rod, racing ships?
I mean,
I thought those were
amazing. They technically were.
I thought those were
Skywalker, right?
But, yeah, they were. They were in the Citizens fleet. My favorite. Yeah, Jacob. Next question.
If you lived in the Star Wars universe, what would your job be? Do you think? What would you do? What would you want to do?
I really like what I do. I'm an architect in the real world. So I would think that I would like to continue being that in the Star Wars universe and having like more technology to build even more fun and funky stuff. I mean, that's one of the things that I've really been enjoying about Skeleton Crew, and people are bashing the suburbs in Skeleton Crew, and everyone's wrong. And if you want to hear why everyone's wrong about bashing the suburbs, please listen to the Triad of the Forces episode with Ken Knapsack on the series premiere, where we talk about why the suburbs make
Star Wars
sense
suburbs,
in Star Wars, and it's great. And one of the things that I liked about
Definitely
it
give that a
is
listen.
just like seeing the it's one of the things that I think Star Wars does a great job at. It's just using Star Warsy design to reinterpret real world things, and I think that just seeing what Star Wars architecture and design in a normal environment, like in Skeleton Crew suburbs in Atten, it's just, for me, it's like really freaking cool, you know. So yeah. So I want to still be an architect in the Star Wars world. Seems like it would be safe career as well. I don't think I would
it's
get
good,
blown up
yeah.
immediately. So
Maybe
unless I'm,
maybe you can convince people to start putting railings around all the bottomless pits and
see, no, but I
know,
think that's a
walks
design
over
feature in
nothing.
many way, because sometimes railings kind of like make things a lot of visual clutter. So I appreciate that there's no OSHA in space, and that we don't
Except
need
for
there
NSA,
is no OSHA.
so
except for NSA, yeah.
There is no
I
OSHA
mean,
in
yeah,
Star
because
Wars.
we did have like those
From George Lucas
handrails
himself.
in Acolyte, like in the planet there where
The
Chimera
the-
was. I don't know
the-
why, but we had handrails there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because they had OSHA in the
Mhm,
Acolyte
mhm.
again. They had,
Oh, literally.
They
Yeah.
they literally had OSHA in the Acolyte.
There we go. Went past my head
Now
because I
I'm
was
gonna
like
have to catch
actually
up
thinking,
on the Acolyte. Now I'm gonna have to catch up on the Acolyte. I want
I
to
love
see
Acolyte.
One
OSHA
of
in
Acolyte.
Star
Jacob,
Wars.
one of the main characters' names in the Acolyte is OSHA.
Oh.
Literally,
But
that's
not
that's,
in all caps. So
not in all caps.
Oh.
Literally, the name is it's short for Verosha, but it's literally the name is OSHA, which is very funny for a whole bunch of reasons in the show. Jacob, next question.
All right. What is your favorite planet from Star Wars?
no, easy. This is easy. Naboo. No
Mm,
ands or ifs about it. It's Naboo.
that's a popular answer, I think.
No disrespect to the other planets, but it has nice architecture, nice lakes, nice nice balustrades to get married in. It seems like it's chill. Like I wouldn't want to be in Naboo during the High Republic because of all that, kerfuffle with the Nile. But other than that, it seems like a pretty chill place to live. I would not want to live in Tatooine or Hoth. Coruscant maybe, but I want to see trees. I don't want to go to Naboo. Period.
Yeah.
Hard stop.
A solid choice. A very solid choice.
All right, next question, Jacob. I think is
it's fine.
you as well. Yeah.
If you could take one physical object or one force ability, if you want to use the force from Star Wars, if you could have it in the real world, use it, do what you want with it, what would it be and why?
Repeat the question.
If you could have one object or force power from Star Wars to use in your real life, what would it be and why?
That's a dangerous question because
it is a dangerous question.
Any answer could be used for
good or for evil.
For good or for evil. But I don't know. I mean, object. My first instinct is just to say Chimera's mask, but because it's just so freaking cool. But I already got a replica from this company in Poland that did an amazing job. So I already have that.
And also, do you really want to take away all of your senses?
Yes, actually, especially in 2025 for the next 4 years.
That's fair. Yes. That is very fair. That is very fair.
Yeah. So let me just say that. Yeah, I want to completely
just vibe in there. Just dissociate.
Yeah, dissociate. Yeah. So Chimera's helmet, and it's handy for if a lightsaber's gonna hit me in the friggin' face. So let's do that from 2025 till the next election. I want that helmet.
just slap me in there.
Just keep me in there. Yeah.
All right. And our final question, which is the one we've been alluding to this entire time. We got to ask, I'm going to show you a Star Wars character, and you're going to tell me how you pronounce that character's name.
Oh, here we go. Especially with me, it's complicated, right? Because sometimes I pronounce things in Spanish just because I default to that. So we'll see. Because Gungi, for the longest time, I would just say Gungi, right? So
the unofficial mascot of this show.
Is there controversy about how to say this name?
Surprisingly, yes. Surprisingly, yes.
Sam
yeah. No, you're right. We've had this feud with Devore from formerly of a larger view of the Force. Pronounced it Wizel for a long time, which is
absolutely not.
Yeah, no, we agree. We 100% agree.
Yeah.
It's a bit that's been overplayed. Nearly everybody on this show who's been on the show has said Wessel because
I think it's unanimous. Actually,
it's near unanimous. It's near unanimous.
I wouldn't have thought that was controversial. Like,
we didn't
AT&T
either.
and
I mean,
ATA, I think there's contention there.
It's a
but-
bit controversial because in the Bounty Hunter, the video game, I think it's what Star Wars Bounty Hunter, she or someone else pronounces it Wazelle in that video game.
And it's the original actress too.
Yeah, so
and it's
like,
the original
it's not
actress
canon
too.
anymore. It's not canon.
Yeah, we don't.
But it is a great story. But I actually kind of like. There is one more question I have for you, Goose, which is, where can we find you? Where can we find Triad of the Force?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I think now it's gonna be harder, easier to find us. I don't know. But Triad of the Force is a primarily audio podcast, so you can find us anywhere podcasts can be, found. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, like all those. Just type in Triad of the Force and you will find us. And we appreciate your support in being there. And if you like what you hear, please make sure to leave a review and a written one. It helps out a lot. But if you want to see like the comings and goings of Triad of the Force on social media, we have officially locked our account on the platform formerly known as Twitter, so we do not post there anymore. We are on Threads, although it's also run by a billionaire, so we limit our posting there. So our primary home right now is on Blue Sky. So just search at Triad of the Force and you will find us there. We're everywhere at Triad of the Force. So Instagram, Blue Sky is like the main hubs where we're at nowadays. So just find us there and enjoy the fun. Like we have like a Discord channel that was dormant for a while. We're trying to build that up so we can have some community started. So if you want to join a very quiet party, you can feel free and join our Discord.
That's going to be it for this episode of Star Wars in a Galaxy. Next week, there is no next week because, as we already said, we are going to be ending Star Wars in a Galaxy for the year of 2024 here. This will be coming out. By the time this comes out on December 27th. This is coming out. This is our last episode of 2024. We are going to be taking a brief hiatus. Probably the first few weeks of January, we will not be posting, but we will be back in mid-January with it's more Andor. Andor. 9 more episodes, and then the main attraction of 2025, the thing we will be spending most of 2025 on, and probably 2026. Let's be real.
It's so sweet.
Jacob, what's season 21 of Star Wars in a Galaxy going to be about?
I couldn't think of any fun quote to introduce it. We're doing Star Wars Rebels.
We're finally doing it.
At long
4
last,
seasons
my favorite show.
in a row. Star Wars Rebels.
Baby.
It's absolutely happening. I'm so excited. We got some great other guests for the Andor season. For this Andor season, I know people are going to. We have made so many friends on this show that are in as much in love with Rebels as Jacob is, and believe me, I'm not that far behind him. So I'm very excited to get into Rebels. But yeah, thanks so much for listening to Star Wars in a Galaxy in the year 2024. As you probably have heard, if you follow us on social media at In a Galaxy Pod everywhere, just like Goose said, we're also primarily on Blue Sky, although we do post our episode releases on Threads, but our main account is on Blue Sky. Star Wars in a Galaxy, we will miss this with an actual episode, I think, but January 14th, 2020 is when we started the show. And if you're looking at a calendar around now, you'll know that is 5 years ago, nearly. And Jacob and I intend to celebrate 5 years of Star Wars in a Galaxy with everybody on January 26th. We've pushed the date. January 26th. Mark it down on your calendars. January 26th, Sunday. I think we're going to do it. It's going to be pretty early Pacific time, but Eastern time, I think it's going to be around 1 or 2 p.m. So starting off the Sunday afternoon with Star Wars in a Galaxy, celebrating 5 years. Make sure to join us. Star Wars in a Galaxy I'm going to say this again. We will be back. We're going to be jumping into Aldani. we are going to be doing Aldani episode 4 alone. We're going to be doing actually I just realized something. I have to make a quick correction on here. We will still be going on a hiatus, but you will hear our episode about episode 4 Aldani in the normal schedule. We will be posting the next week, our first episode of 2025 posted at the end of the first week. That will happen, and then we're going to take our break. So it'll be a while between episodes 4 and 5 of Andor, but we'll be getting to Aldani, we'll be getting to the Axe Forgets sometime later, and then we will be getting to the Eye, which is where we will have our second special guest of the season, another first-time guest. You know her from, well, we all know her because I discovered her on some trivia streams and discovered that this woman knows a lot about Rogue One and about Andor, and so I invited her to come participate in Epic Confrontations, and we became friends as well. Mo, our good friend Mo, is going to be joining us for the Eye as our first guest of 2025.
Yes, sir. Exciting stuff.
So that's all you have to look forward to for In a Galaxy. I'm trying to think. Epic Confrontations, as I think we have alluded to as well, is done for 2024. We have some dynamite stuff for 2025, starting right in January with our guest Goose. He will be one of the 2 team captains, along with our previous In a Galaxy guest, Andy. It's funny that we had them on so close to each other because they are going to be our 2 team captains in the Coaxium run. They're going to be both competing with their teams, and they have chosen very good teams, by the way, to win the activation of their own Coaxium booster. All that and way more, including championship matches, epic showdowns, all that on Epic Confrontations coming in 2025. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff happening next year, and I'm very excited to jump into this all. Also, I will make one more note before we end the show, and I know it's been a little bit of a lengthy one, which is that I'm also taking these 2 weeks off of by this time you'll see I won't have done the Skeleton Crew after show for episode 4. I'm also not doing it for episode 5 because they're both on holidays, and do I look stupid? Nobody's gonna watch these things on nobody's gonna come and hang out on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. People have better things to do. So, but we will be back the first Tuesday of January, I believe it is. January 7th. January 7th, we will be back with the Skeleton Crew after shows, our call-in after shows. I've been having a ton of fun talking with people about Skeleton Crew. We'll be doing a massive episodes 5, 6, and 7 review that night at 7:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm trying to think. Yeah, but from all of us here at Star Wars in a Galaxy, we wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and a Happy New Year 2025. And you can follow, as I said before, you can follow us at Any Galaxy Pod everywhere. Follow me at OchiFan327 everywhere. My link tree for all my stuff, linktr.ee/_OchiFan327. I think that's it. And until next time, and the next time will indeed be we will record it in 2024, but we will post it in 2025. Until next year, then, may the Force be with you.
Always.
Always.